My hometown is vibrant. Its status is certified. It is official. It is stamped on both sides. There was a time, though, when it wasn't. When my friends and I would laugh at Kansas City's blandness. Its harmless theater productions, its pretentious suburbs, its private country clubs, its eternal taste for classic rock. We called it Cupcake Land, after a favorite Richard Rhodes essay from the 1980s. The city knew nothing of the bold ideas of our robust generation, we thought. It had no real gritty music subculture. It was deaf to irony. Hell, it actually tried to drive out of business the last surviving club from its jazz age glory days. Maybe that was the sort of criticism everybody made of their Midwestern hometowns back then. Well, those hometowns have certainly turned the tables on us scoffers. Our enthusiasm for music is a dead thing now in these post-alternative decades, a mere record collection that we occasionally cue up after one scotch too many to help us remember the time when art seemed to matter. But Kansas City doesn't need any reminders. The place fairly quivers with vitality today. It is swarming with artists. Its traffic islands are bedecked with the colorful products of their studios. It boasts a spectacular new performing arts center designed by one of those spectacular new celebrity architects. It even has an indie rock festival to call its own. And while much of the city's flowering has been organic and spontaneous, other parts of its renaissance were actually engineered by the very class of civic leaders people like me used to deride for their impotence and cluelessness. At that Kansas City Indie Rock Festival, for example, the mayor himself made a presentation a few years ago, as did numerous local professionals and business leaders. Besides, as everyone knows, cupcakes are cool nowadays, like yoga or something, the consummate expression of the baker's artisanal vibrancy. Your hometown is probably vibrant too. Every city is either vibrant these days or is working on a plan to attain vibrancy soon. The reason is simple. A city isn't successful, isn't even a city really, unless it can lay claim to being vibrant. Vibrancy is so universally desirable, so totemic in its powers, that even though we aren't sure what the word means, we know that the quality it designates must be cultivated. The vibrant, we believe, is what makes certain cities flourish. The absence of vibrancy, by contrast, is what allows the diseases of depopulation and blight to set in. This formulation sounded ridiculous to me when I first encountered it. Whatever the word meant, vibrancy was surely an outcome of civic prosperity, not its cause. Putting it the other way around was like reasoning that since sidewalks get wet when it rains, we can encourage rainfall by wetting the sidewalks. But to others, the vibrancy mantra is profoundly persuasive. The pursuit of the vibrant seems to be the universal job description of the nation's city planners nowadays. It was also part of the Obama administration's economic recovery strategy for the nation. In the fall of 2011, the National Endowment for the Arts launched Art Place, a joint project with the nation's largest banks and foundations. And Art Place immediately began generating a cloud of glowing euphemisms around the central, hallowed cliché. Art Place is investing in art and culture at the heart of a portfolio of integrated strategies that can drive vibrancy and diversity so powerful that it transforms communities. Specifically, the way vibrancy was supposed to transform communities was by making them more prosperous. Art Place used to say its goal was not merely to promote the arts, but to transform economic development in America, a project that was straightforward and obvious if you accepted the organization's slogan. Art creates vibrancy and increases economic opportunity. And that, presumably, is why everyone is so damn vibrant these days. Consider Akron, Ohio, which in 2012 was the subject of a conference bearing the thrilling name Greater Akron. This is what vibrant looks like. Or Boise, Idaho, whose citizens, according to the city's Department of Arts and History, were fortunate to live in a vibrant community in which creativity flourishes in every season. Or Cincinnati, which is the home of a nonprofit called Go Vibrant, as well as of the Greater Cincinnati Foundation, which used to hand out cultural vibrancy grants, guided by the knowledge that cultural vibrancy is vital to a thriving community. Is Rockford, Illinois, vibrant? Oh my God, yes. According to a local news outlet, the city's Mayor's Arts Award nominees make Rockford vibrant. The Quad Cities? Check. As their tourism website explains, the four hamlets are a vibrant community of cities sharing the Mississippi River in both Iowa and Illinois. Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania? Need you even ask? Pittsburgh is a sort of Paris of the vibrant, a city where dance parties and rock concerts enjoy the vigorous boosting of an outfit called Vibrant Pittsburgh, a place that draws young people from across the nation to frolic in its numerous hip and vibrant neighborhoods, according to a blog maintained by a consortium of Pittsburgh business organizations. Then there are the unfortunate places from which the big V is said to have receded, like the once vibrant Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky International Airport, where remediation efforts are thankfully underway. Detroit has for years provided the nation's opining class with sobering lessons on what happens when the vibrant evaporates, and the fear that such a fate might befall other scenes and other communities still occasionally makes headlines. According to the Hartford Courant, a looming shortage of vibrancy gave the Connecticut business community quite a scare in 2007, while the city fathers of Cleveland took a peep at all that was vibrating in Seattle back in 2002 and suspected that they were losing the race. Without that vibrancy, Cleveland may decline. The real Sahara of the vibrant, though, is that part of America where lonely Midwestern farmers live among what the New York Times calls crumbling reminders of more vibrant days. This is a land from which vibrancy has withdrawn its blessings. The disastrous depopulation that has followed is, according to vibrancy theory, the unavoidable consequence. In small towns, bored teenagers turn their eyes longingly to the exciting doings in the big cities. They pine for urban amenities such as hipster bars and farmers markets and indie rock festivals. Like everyone else, they want the vibrant and they will not be denied. As with other cliches, to describe a city as vibrant was once a fairly innovative thing to do. Before 1950, the adjective was used mainly to describe colors and sound, the latter of which, after all, is transmitted through the air as vibrations. People's voices were often said to be vibrant, as were, say, notes played on an oboe. To apply the adjective to a community or a scene, on the other hand, was extremely unusual back then. In fact, the word vibrant does not seem to appear at all in Jane Jacobs' 1961 urban classic, The Death and Life of Great American Cities, even though that book is often remembered as the manifesto of vibrancy theory. How the expression made the leap from novelty to gold-plated bureaucratic buzzword is anyone's guess. The real force behind our mania for the vibrant is the nation's charitable foundations. For organized philanthropy, vibrant seems to have become the one-stop solution for all that ails the American polis. A decade ago, there were other obsessions, multiculturalism, or private-public partnerships, or leadership programs. But now it's, get Southern Illinois some vibrancy and its troubles are over. A vibrant arts community strengthens our region, the website of the Seattle Foundation used to declare, describing art as a way of attracting and retaining awesome corporate employers. The New England Foundation for the Arts spends its substance to nurture a vibrant ecology for dance. The Kresge Foundation seeks to build strong, vibrant communities enlivened by the presence of healthy cultural organizations and well-resourced artists. The S.D. Bechtel Jr. Foundation says it's dedicated to advancing a productive, vibrant, and sustainable California. The Greater Tacoma Community Foundation hands out vibrant community grants to local nonprofits, while the Vibrant Communities program of Montreal's J.W. McConnell Family Foundation seems to be a sort of anti-poverty initiative. But while everyone agrees that vibrancy is the ultimate desideratum of urban life, no one seems to be exactly sure what vibrancy is. In 2012, the Municipal Arts Society of New York held a panel discussion, a convening, of foundation people to talk about measuring vibrancy. It seems the impact of arts and cultural investments on neighborhoods is hard to quantify. In retrospect, it would have been far better to convene such a gathering before all those foundation people persuaded the cities of the nation to blow millions setting up gallery districts and street fairs. Even Art Place, the big vibrancy project of the NEA, the banks, and the foundations, was not entirely sure that vibrancy could be observed or quantified. That's why the group worked to develop what it called vibrancy indicators. While we are not able to measure vibrancy directly, the group's website admits, we believe that the measures we are assembling, taken together, will provide useful insights into the nature and location of especially vibrant places within cities. What are those measures? Eventually, Art Place would settle on 10 categories that were pretty much exactly what you would expect. Creative industry jobs, for example, and cell phone activity. Even before these were announced, however, the organization had published a presentation on the subject that included this helpful directive: inform leaders of the connection between vibrancy and prosperity. So, vibrancy brings prosperity, which we know because prosperous places are vibrant ones. Got that? Read enough of this material and it starts to feel as if nothing can deter the committed friend of the vibrant. If you know it's the great good thing, you simply push ahead, moving all before you with your millions. This is not the place to try to gauge the enormous, unaccountable power that foundations wield over American life. Their agenda-setting clout in urban planning debates, for example, or the influence they hold over cash-strapped universities, or their symbiosis with public broadcasters NPR and PBS. My target here is not their power, but their vacuity. The members of our leadership class look out over the trashed and looted landscape of the American city, and they solemnly declare that salvation lies in an almost meaningless buzzword, that if we chant that buzzword loud enough and often enough, our troubles are over. Back in the day, my friends and I at the Baffler loved to mock, analyze, and deride money's cultivation of the cool. Just think of all the permutations of urban hipness that have flickered by since we first undertook that mission. Rollerblading near water. Potemkin bohemias like Chicago's Wicker Park. Richard Florida's creative class. And while each of these fads came and went, here is what also happened. Utilities were privatized to disastrous effect. The real estate bubble grew and burst. The banks got ever bigger. State governments declared war on public workers, and the economy went off a cliff. It's time to acknowledge the truth, that our leaders have nothing to say, really, about any of this. They have nothing to suggest, really, to Cairo, Illinois, or St. Joseph, Missouri. They have no comment to make, really, about the depopulation of the countryside or the deindustrialization of the Midwest. They have nothing to offer, really, but the same suggestions as before, gussied up with a new set of cliches. They have no idea what to do for places or people that aren't already successful or that have no prospect of ever becoming cool. And so the dull bureaucrat lusts passionately for the lifestyle of the creative artist, but beneath it all is the harsh fact that foundations have been selling the vibrant under one label or another for decades. All they've done this time is repackage it as a sort of prosperity gospel for Ivy League art students. As the name of a suburban St. Louis street festival puts it, without the smallest detectable trace of irony, let them eat art. In the face of this deafening silence, allow me to propose a working hypothesis of what makes up the vibrant. It is a quality you find in cities or neighborhoods where there is an art or music scene, lots of restaurants and food markets of a certain highbrow type, trophy architecture to memorialize the scene's otherwise transient life, and an audience of prosperous people who are interested in all these things. Art production is supposed to be linked through the black box of vibrancy to prosperity itself. This is something so obvious that just about everyone concerned agrees on it. Corporations see a vibrant cultural landscape as a magnet for talent, goes the thinking behind Kansas City's vibrancy, according to one report. It's almost as vital for drawing good workers as more traditional benefits like retirement plans and health insurance. In other words, art is literally a substitute for compensating people properly. Let them eat art, indeed. And so when the Cincinnati Foundation, known as ArtsWave, informs the world that the arts create vibrant neighborhoods and contribute to a thriving economy, it is voicing a sentiment so commonplace in foundation land that it is almost not worth remarking on. How does art do these amazing things, you might ask? Reasoning backward from the ultimate object of all contemporary civic planning, attracting and retaining top talent, of course, the ArtPlace website pronounced thus: the ability to attract and retain talent depends, in part, on quality of place, and the best proxy for quality of place is vibrancy. Others have spelled out the formula in more detail. We build prosperity by mobilizing art people as vibrancy shock troops and counting on them to, well, gentrify formerly bedraggled parts of town. Once that mission is accomplished, then other vibrancy multipliers kick in. The presence of hipsters is said to be inspirational to businesses. Their doings make cities attractive to the class of professionals that everyone wants. Their colorful japes help companies to hire quality employees, and so on. All a city really needs to prosper is a group of art school grads, some lofts for them to live in, and a couple of thrift stores to supply them with the ironic clothes they crave. Then we just step back and watch them work their magic. In this respect, we are counting on our artists for considerably more than we did during the country's previous experience with economic breakdown, but also, in other respects, considerably less. In the 1930s, the federal government launched a number of programs directly subsidizing artists. Painters got jobs making murals for the walls of post offices and public buildings. Theater troupes staged plays. Writers collected folklore. Photographers combed the South, documenting the lives of sharecroppers. But no one expected those artists to pull us out of the Depression by some occult process of entrepreneurship kindling. Instead, government supported them mainly because they were unemployed. In other words, government then did precisely the opposite of what government does today. In the 30s, we protected artists from the market, while today we thrust them out into it, imagining them as the stokers on the hurtling job creation locomotive. Both then and now, we heard much about scenes. The public art of the 30s was famously concerned with the American scene via the style known as regionalism. Thomas Hart Benton painted Missouri scenes. John Stewart Curry painted Kansas scenes. And unemployed writers assembled tour guides to every state in the Union. In today's more vibrant version, though, the artist himself is the spectacle, the subject of the tour guide. His primary job is not necessarily to produce art, but to participate in a scene, in an act that is put on for well-heeled spectators. Indeed, this act is essential to the vibrant. In order to bring the economic effects that the arts are being counted upon to bring, the attraction and retention of top talent for a city's corporations, remember, the artist himself must be highly visible. He must run a gallery, patronize cool coffee shops and restaurants, or rehab rundown buildings. The imagined audience is also different. Art for the millions was the slogan in the 1930s, and federal programs then aimed to improve both cities and rural settlements to make them more livable for everyone. Today, however, we have a different public in mind. Vibrancy is a performance that artists or musicians are expected to put on, either directly or indirectly, for the corporate class. These are the ones we aim to reassure of our city's vibrancy so that they never choose to move their millions of dollars to some more vibrant burg. An artist who keeps to herself, who works in her room all day, who wears unremarkable clothes and goes without tattoos, by definition, she brings almost nothing to this project, adds little to the economic prospects of a given area. She inspires no one. She offers no lessons in creativity. She is not vibrant. The public art of the 30s was often heavy-handed, close to propaganda even, but it was also intensely concerned with the lives of ordinary people. The vibrant, on the other hand, would separate the artist from such boring souls. The creative ones are to be corralled into a scene where they work their magic, pumping up real estate prices and inspiring creative class onlookers. But what of the people no one is interested in attracting and retaining? Millions of Americans go through their lives in places that aren't vibrant, in areas that don't have a scene, in jobs that aren't rewarding, in industries that aren't creative. Their experiences are, almost by definition, off limits for artistic contemplation. Instead of all that, the aesthetic of the vibrant proposes a tail-chasing reverence for creativity itself, a power that is supposed to inspire the businessperson spectator and lead him or her to conjure up bold and outside-the-box thoughts. Consider the trophy buildings that are inevitably the greatest expression of vibrancy theory, the assorted Frank Gehry and pseudo-Gehry structures that every city council seems to believe it must build as a sort of welcome mat to the creative class. Regardless of the particular shape that each structure's fluttering and swooping exterior takes, the point of the buildings is, in a general sense, to flaunt their eccentricity, to conspicuously defy the straight lines and cheap construction materials of the conventional buildings that surround them. There's, of course, an obvious contradiction here. On the one hand, vibrancy theory treats the artist as a glorified social worker, whose role is to please children and stimulate businessmen and support the community. But the means by which the community is to be supported is always some species of vanguardism or conspicuous creativity. The whole point of the vibrant is to build prosperous economies to help business succeed, and yet prosperous business communities with their Babbitt-like complacency in their air-conditioned cubicles and their office park buildings are precisely what we expect artists to flout and defy. A second problem: why is it any better to pander to the creative class than it is to pander to business in the usual way? One strategy uses incentives and tax cuts to get companies to move from one state to another, while the other advises us to emphasize music festivals and art galleries when we make our appeal to that exalted cohort. But neither approach imagines a future arising from something other than government abasing itself before the wealthy. Let's say that the foundations successfully persuade Akron to enter into a vibrancy arms race with Indianapolis. Let's say both cities blow millions on building cool neighborhoods and encouraging private art galleries. But let's say Akron wins. Somehow its planned vibrancy catches on, and thanks to a particularly piquant whirligig installation, it is able to steal away Indianapolis's businesses. Akron attracts and retains. It becomes a creative class hotspot. It leaves Indianapolis an empty hulk on the prairie. But what then? Is the nation better served now that those businesses are located in Akron rather than in Indianapolis? Or would it have been more productive to spend those millions on bridges, railroads, highways, or even to hire 1,000 angry bloggers to demand better bank regulation? It doesn't really take a whole lot of creativity to come up with real answers to our big problems. You just need to change the question slightly. How about, instead of serving some targeted fraction of the master class, we choose to give an entirely different group of Americans what they want, even if those Americans weren't cool? What would that look like? A while ago, I was talking about rural depopulation with an officer of a Kansas farmers organization. As it happened, he had thought about the problem a great deal. Using arts festivals to make small towns appear vibrant, a favorite stratagem of ArtPlace, was not one of his suggestions. What he proposed instead was universal health coverage. Other solutions to the problem of rural depopulation are just as easy to come up with. Prohibit corporate agriculture. This would encourage not only small farms, but food diversity as well. Use zoning rules to restrict big box stores, thereby saving small town merchants. Make college excellent and affordable, so that graduates aren't forced by the weight of student debt to seek corporate employment in the big cities. Resist the urgings of foundation dignitaries and focus instead on the far less beguiling reverie of durable, productive enterprise. For any of this to happen, though, the vibrancy Ponzi scheme first has to bottom out. The creative class must face its final Gotterdammerung, so hop to it, Akron. Convert your very last rubber factory into an artist's loft, bring on the indie rock festivals, and borrow millions in order to get a sweeping new titanium city hall designed by Rem Koolhaus. Go vibrant!